Hey, Doug.
Here am I.
Do you like doodling? Are you an artist?
I like doodling that could get me in really fucking big trouble.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I remember I when I was a kid, I would doodle a lot, and I think I did get in trouble for it sometimes.
Did you draw boobs?
Probably.
Probably a penis.
Probably a penus.
A penis on your desk and your teacher caught.
You never know.
Yeah.
I had the ADHD. It's not like I was paying attention to what I was drawing. I was just drawing.
Just
whatever
possessed.
came out.
A lot of dicks.
So,
Well, you work in the medium you have.
Indeed. But I think, Uncle Mark, you're going to teach us all about ways that we as grown folk
May draw yourself to death.
can draw. I love it.
Yes, indeed. And
Hurrah!
So, and not to put too fine a point on it, but I think it's important for us to keep in the back of our minds somewhere that the notion that what we do here, fellas, which is critiquing, examining, and even lampooning stuff that other people find sacred, can have some downsides.
What?
Yeah, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. So, beyond the pissy tweets and the 1-star reviews on iTunes and the occasional huffy emails, lurks an even crazier threat. Threats that even include murder in the name of a loving and just God.
Not to us yet.
No, we have not. We've yet to receive one.
Yet.
Not that we're asking for that. Maybe we'll ask for it. It's a Patreon goal.
Patreon goal, death threats.
Send your death threats to the How To Heretic.
Yes.
Just send your death threat. Write your death threats on several $100 bills.
Yes.
And send them to.
Just be aware that if you do threaten us with death, we will report you to the Space Force. So, today we're talking about a sacred cow. That is kind of for a thing that's not real. It is a for real sacred cow, emphasis on sacred, and that is images of the Prophet Muhammad. What are they? Why are they? And how and when can you get in on this exciting new thing?
I'll see you guys later.
Yeah.
Je suis Charlie.
Okay, so listen up, heretics. This announcement is for the listening audience only, not for my fellow uncles.
Okay.
I'm
closing my ears.
Yes. I've installed a flashing light in the studio that I switch on when I'm telling a risky joke. That way, hopefully Uncle Dan won't get killed because of my dangerous but celebrated topical humor, okay? So when you see the light, you know not to murder him, okay? So light flashing means joke, right? Okay, back to the show. And speaking of images of Muhammad, Dan is just finishing a real humdinger of a portrait for his growing collection. What a masterpiece, Dan.
Thank you.
I can't tell where the
Do you like the dick?
I can't tell where the donkey ends and Muhammad begins.
I think using real pubic hairs for the beard is a daring move.
You really should work in the arts.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm hydrating before the murder starts.
Yes, that's a good idea.
I almost choked. But seriously, anyone who's watched the news in the last couple decades knows that anybody, especially non-Muslim Westerners, that make so much as a doodle and claim it's a likeness of the Prophet Muhammad can find themselves sans head, or at least suddenly possessing several more holes than they were born with on a random Parisian afternoon. Now,
Yeah. I like my current number of holes.
yeah,
That's true.
you've got a good number.
Thank you.
It's an unusual number.
17, but,
Yeah.
it's fine.
17 and counting. So before I dive into the evolution of this rather severe reaction some amateur art critics have to the doodlings of others, let us preface this descent into homicidal religiosity by saying, nobody knows what the fuck Muhammad looked like. Therefore, no one can actually make an accurate portrait of him. And even if they happen to by the 100 Monkeys typing canard, nobody would ever know that they got it right. So let us embrace the underlying absurdity.
Screams Mark right before the hot lead flies.
You don't know what he looked like?
My question is, how do those monkeys know?
Right.
What are they not telling us?
And they're doing it on a typewriter, so it's that thing you learned in
XO, space.
in middle school typing class where you had to type a reindeer space, XO, space. So let us embrace the underlying absurdity of this whole high-capacity magazine kerfuffle with that knowledge. Well, there is one pretty hilarious attempt at a physical description of the Prophet made by someone who knew him at the time he was alive, and verbal descriptions are permitted, guys. So all of our jihadi listeners, just cool your jets, okay? And here it is, the description of the Prophet Muhammad, the description.
Okay.
And I quote, "The apostle of Allah, may Allah bless him, is neither too short nor too tall. His hair are neither curly nor straight, but a mixture of the two.
Oh, okay.
He is a man of black hair and large skull, His complexion has a tinge of redness.
Okay.
His shoulder bones are broad, and his palms and feet are fleshy. He has long al-masruba, which means hair growing from neck to navel. He is long of eyelashes, close eyebrows, smooth and shining forehead, and long space between two shoulders.
Ooh.
When he walks inclining, as if coming down from a great height. I never saw a man like him before him or after him.
Swipe right.
End quote. Exactly.
There, I just drew this. You guys can see.
Oh, Jesus.
Is that good? Did I do it?
Oh,
How'd
yeah.
I do? Did I do a good job?
Pretty good.
Is he long of eyelashes?
He's long of eyelashes. I couldn't really get the eyelashes in.
He does look like he's coming down from a great height.
I'm just trying to figure out what a fleshy palm would look like compared to mine. What am I missing?
You're pretty fleshy.
Fleshier, I guess.
You got flesh on that palm.
Yeah.
And hair. Why is there hair on your palm? That's weird. Anyway, go on.
So, what is it about depicting an image of an actual historical figure that gets some people so stabby? After all, Muhammad said of himself that he was just a man, just a messenger, and no one special. No doubt at the time he was having his wacky portrait drawn by one of those caricature artists at the county fair. So the Quran itself says nothing about it at all.
Really?
Idolatry is forbidden,
Okay.
but there are a couple of the hadith that forbid any creation of a human or animal figure.
Oh, that's right.
What are the hadith? They are comically non-credible things that it is believed the prophet said or did or meant to say. They were correlated out of thousands of oral anecdotes, scraps of paper, etc., long after his death, ascension to heaven on Barak, his magical winged horse.
Right. I want to know how many of them are just things he meant to say.
Right.
I meant, let me tell you what I meant to say.
He was going to say this.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure what he meant by that was,
What
you
he
need
was-
to die, motherfucker.
The way that what he meant to say was,
It's hard to write with such fleshy palms.
it's tough.
So the hadith is kind of like the Quran light, but it's still taken seriously by Muslims, and the particular prohibitions against images of people or animals is taken very seriously, mostly by Sunni Muslims, who, it happens, are the vast majority of the Islamic world. So,
Which is funny because, they don't object when non-Muslims make images of other people, any of the other people.
no,
The prohibition is against the creation of the images.
like literally the guy, the fuckbags in ISIS that make videos,
Yeah.
according to their own imams, video images of human beings are haram. They're forbidden.
Yeah.
So you fucked it up, guys.
So they're making videos. and then,
That sick
Imam.
burn on ISIS.
Leave me alone, Imam.
So that prohibition from the amazing hadith may sound familiar to Christian ears, and indeed it should. It can be found in a very particular set of rules,
Yeah.
which are for a second time in the Bible in Deuteronomy. The second Jewish commandment states, and I quote, "You shall not make yourself an idol, whether in the form of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth." We talked about this on some episode, but "you shall not bow down to them or worship them, semicolon, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God,"
Meh.
indicating other gods, "punishing children for the iniquity of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who reject me, but showing steadfast love to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments, unless your name is Job and the devil tricks me, Almighty God, into a wager." He did not continue.
Right.
So, even though this is clearly spelled out in the only list of rules that matter to American Christians, in fact, they matter so much that, that we must have them in every courthouse and school and park in the land, they oddly fail utterly to obey that commandment,
Right.
as they do most of the others. But rules are for the sinners in America, never for the righteous, as our great Christian president proves in spades. So,
Yeah.
but what that unloved commandment demonstrates about Judaism and Christianity is the same foundational impulse the Hadith demonstrate about Islam, which is that they are all originally aniconist religions, meaning they all forbade the artistic depiction of God's creation. Aniconism is the idea that creating such depictions is an arrogant challenge to God's divinity, and is also a reaction to the idolatry of the polytheism that pervaded the area at the time.
You know who the least Christian or the least godly human ever was?
Tell me.
Norman Rockwell.
Yes.
Always making images of people.
He was the devil.
Like a
Or any various Instagram influencer.
right. Well, yes, those are actually really.
Yeah,
So anyway,
they truly are.
Judaism mostly gave up that restriction, and Christianity not only discarded the commandment, still very much on the book they carry around but never read, they fully embraced figurative art as a way to propagandize their aggressively missionary faith and to educate and intimidate the masses of illiterate tithe payers.
Yeah.
Every single cathedral you've ever been to is made out of paintings and statues, right? So, am I saying Muslims are better at religion than Christians? Yes. Yes, I am.
Yeah, they kind of are.
Yeah, in the same way that any fundamentalist is living their religion more truly than the moderately religious person, right?
They take it to the logical conclusion, which if you believe in the magic of, if you believe in what you pretend to believe in, you have to do.
Yeah. I mean,
You have to go all the way.
these ideas are kind of all or nothing. And
Right.
The fact that people have kind of found a 50-50.
Either God said it or he didn't. Either you're supposed to believe it or you aren't. And
Preaching right now? What's going on? This podcast is
Jesus
taking a turn.
Christ.
well, no, I think the point is that like the people who actually do their religion the best prove how shitty their religion is.
Or at the very least, not as big a hypocrite as the rest of them.
Right. They're living the word, man. I mean, I don't think living religiously is a good thing.
Right.
But if you do, chances are Muslims are doing it better than you are.
Right.
So, enough of Mark's Sermon on the Mount. So, where Christianity pressed the greatest artists of the ages into the service of the Pope, small note, I didn't know this, even though I had a lot of art history, after the radically iconoclastic fevers of the 8th and 9th century in Christendom, there was a bit of a fever to fully follow commandment number 2 for a hot minute.
Oh, for real?
Like a lot of icons and things were destroyed.
Oh, wow.
But they got over that. Islam never embraced the figurative arts in support of the faith. It did fully embrace the finest artists and architects in its orbit to build their mosques and shrines because of beautiful geometry and ceramic work and everything. So very lovely indeed.
Well,
but
and
no
they also managed to start using their language, like their written language, became their visual art.
Right.
Like it was all they could do.
Yeah.
But they'd make it so gorgeous and scrolly and pretty and whatever.
So you can do that. You can show the name of Muhammad, the word,
Right.
and they do these beautiful, huge calligraphic, kind of depictions of the word Muhammad that are quite pretty. But no broad shoulders, no long eyelashes, no shining forehead and big skull.
no hair from chin to balls.
Navel. So very early Muslim sources, mostly in Persia, did have books with illustrations of a man called Muhammad in them. And a few of those survived, but untold numbers were destroyed over time in spasms of Islamic orthodoxy. Some that do survive have his face scratched off or painted over with a white blankness, or his whole body completely covered in a white veil, like a shy Canadian bride. And as I mentioned a little earlier, the Sunnis absolutely forbid any portrayal of Muhammad, where the Shia, oddly enough, are a little less uptight about it. So there's this odd colorized photograph that's readily available in Iran and wherever else you find Shia, your local Shia, and it's come to be associated with a youthful Muhammad, but it's really a photo of a teenage Tunisian boy taken by an English photographer in 1905.
Oh.
Here, I'll show you. You got to see this because it kind of cracks me up.
Aw.
What?
Yeah.
He's cute.
He's a rather feminine Muhammad.
Yes, yeah. Could easily be mistaken for a Mohammedina.
A pretty Tunisian girl. And look, if Muhammad's got a feminine side, I'm here for it. I'm like,
absolutely.
I think Islam should explore that a little bit more.
And when he grows into his eyelashes, he'll be a handsome.
with that hair from.
Can you imagine that kid doing drag? Like Muhammad would have been gorgeous in drag.
Oh my God, yeah. But the amount of tweezing and waxing would be outrageous.
So, nobody in the Shia world believes, obviously, that's Muhammad, but it's kind of a totem that's acceptable to say, okay, this is an image of young Muhammad. So they're very common in people's houses.
How
and
very
places
weird.
of work. So
that's, I mean, I guess that's not that much stranger than, all of these Americans with some picture of a Danish
Totally.
bearded guy.
Blue-eyed blonde
Right,
Jesus.
But since Christians have fully discarded that second commandment,
Right.
there's no prohibition against any kind of depiction of
Yeah,
Jesus.
right.
So the Muslim prohibition against the graven image has been taken far more seriously than the other aniconistic faiths. We know that nobody blew up Michelangelo or Raphael, and the Muslim prohibition is no more specific than the Old Testament one, in that Muhammad himself is not named among the vague description of human and animal figures.
That's so. See, this is my point. Why aren't they blowing up people for painting pictures of anybody else?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, the Taliban did that, right? The Taliban blew up those images
the
of
Banyan
Buddha.
Buddhas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A real crime.
Yeah.
And ISIS is actually doing that now in some of these ancient cities in Syria, where there remain some pagan temples and Christian temples that they have destroyed,
Yeah, but I just assume that that's because they don't like the competition.
and they sell it.
Do they?
Yeah, they take the
Oh,
art and
okay.
sell it on the black market. So, 'cause
Yeah,
it's
I
worth
mean, as far as
a
I'm
fortune.
concerned, until they're blowing up pictures of Kylie Jenner or whatever, they're not living the creed.
Kylie Jenner. So, for whatever reason, what started as a general rule against living figures then evolved into a prohibition against images of the prophet, has in recent years really weaponized into one of the defining characteristics of Islam in Western eyes.
Yeah.
I think this has mostly to do with continued Western imperialism in the Muslim world and the limits of human tolerance for indignity and persecution. I mean, it's bad enough that plutocratic Western countries bomb their countries into rubble for the crime of wanting to control their own natural resources. But then some Christian assholes want to make a cartoon of their sacred prophet or desecrate the Quran. I kind of get the anger. It's still not right, but it's hard not to see the angry logic of it.
No, I get the anger. It's still not okay to blow people up.
No, it's generally even their own religion does forbid that at some point. So how much
Sort
can a
of.
person be expected to take, especially when they have a belligerent nihilistic religion fanning their rage?
Right.
So the really high-profile incidents of violence surrounding images of Muhammad are pretty recent. There have been non-mocking Western images of Muhammad that have stirred controversy, most famously in the U.S. Supreme Court chambers built in the 30s. An artist wanted to bring some gravitas to the proceedings by creating a sculpted frieze above the judges of great lawgivers from history. So there, among Confucius and Solomon and Hammurabi and Moses, is Muhammad.
You know where there's one of those right here in our own town?
Yes, and it was a little bit of a controversy at the University of Utah.
A huge controversy
Yeah.
at our own alma mater.
Yeah.
Up there.
I actually drove up there because I was reading about it. I drove up there yesterday to look at it, but the building was locked. So,
Oh, it's still there, and he's still there.
but they painted over the name.
the name's not there.
So there's all these homos from the Enlightenment
There's
and
like
the Renaissance.
there's like Moses, and there's Shakespeare, and there's Darwin, I think.
Yeah.
and then there's
brown guy with turban.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because you can say his name, but you can't have his face up there.
Well, yeah. Yeah,
Would've
you could. They
Right.
could. What's funny is that they chose
Yeah.
to get rid of the name, but they
Right.
could have just gotten rid of the body and left the name.
That would have been pretty funny. Just Muhammad and blank.
I'm quite delighted that they didn't succumb to that pressure. But it is funny. You can write the word. That's no problem. the
Right.
name. But that's what they covered.
yeah.
But it was a historical. It's a historical thing. They legally couldn't paint over it. So
Oh, really?
yeah. So
Oh, how
anyway,
funny.
as far as the one in the Supreme Court, and again, it's not mocking. It kind of honors him.
That's the point of it.
Right. So several polite attempts by the embassies of Muslim governments have been made to have it removed, so far to no avail, although there's renewed hope Brett Kavanaugh might steal it as part of a fraternity initiation. Let's pin all our hopes on that guy. But well-meaning depictions aside,
Somebody's issue that dare.
Yeah.
Somebody in D.C.
he likes beer. He still likes beer.
I like beer.
So mocking and critical depictions have been around for quite a while. In the 29th canto of the 14th century epic poem Dante's Inferno, which we'll cover in depth another time, Mohammed wanders one of the lower circles of hell, his naked body split from chin to groin,
Yeah.
with his guts hanging all out,
And all that fur.
and all that fur, as gruesomely depicted in Gustave Doré's amazing engravings for the book. You can see him pulling his chest open and everything's just hanging out. Several depictions of Muhammad burning in various hells exist in cathedrals and other artistic works of the time. But it is the modern age where we most often find the cartoon meets the kaboom. So, thank you. Starting in the early 2000s, in a world out of whack following the attacks of September 11th and the wargasm of violence that followed, cartoonists, especially in Western Europe, began depicting Muhammad in editorial cartoons as either a comically absurd primitive idiot or a conniving nihilistic terrorist. Mass protests and threats of violence and murder followed. So here are two examples of how bad things had gotten. First, French satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo. They had a history of brutally lampooning everybody.
Yeah.
They had targeted
They're
Muhammad
the Mad
before.
Magazine of there.
They're a very political, hyper-political Mad Magazine, and they exist to take everybody down a peg.
Right.
So they had targeted Muhammad before, but in 2012 they did a series of cartoons, many of them featuring the Prophet naked. Their office got firebombed, but no one was hurt. And then in 2013 they announced they would make a rude comic book of the life of the Prophet. Al-Qaeda's Yemeni branch issued a kill list, and in February 2015, Muslims attacked their offices and killed 12 people. Remember when you were a kid and your mom said cartoons were bad for you? You have been warned. And then there's a ton of incidents, but another one that bears talking about is in 2012, a blue ribbon crazy person named Nakula Basley Nakula made a partial piece of utter shit on YouTube called The Innocence of Muslims.
Yeah.
So it's a green screen comment section rant about the savage bloodthirstiness and pedophilia of the Prophet and his followers. This unwatchable dreck
Unwatchable.
was
give it a
indeed
shot.
watched by a huge swath of the Muslim world, which erupted in violent protests that killed 30 people. This violent reaction is also considered at least partly to blame for the violence that engulfed the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya, killing 4 U.S. personnel and giving Republicans who had just voted to slash security funding for our embassies hope they could take out one sitting and one future president in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
They were 1 for 2. So there are plenty more examples of mostly equally bonkers Christianists trying to antagonize Muslims by burning Qurans or drawing their precious prophet and feverishly antagonizing their Muslim mirror images. But the original cartoonists were secular, liberal people critiquing the absurdity of a religion feeling like their superstitious taboos should extend into the lives of non-believers everywhere.
Right. Like, yeah, I have these feelings, and therefore you are not allowed to draw something.
Right, and I will kill you
Yeah. Under
for what I
penalty of
believe in.
death.
Yeah.
Right.
So as a result of a South Park episode lampooning the idea that nobody can depict Muhammad and the utterly predictable threats of violence that followed, a Seattle-based cartoonist named Molly Norris proposed the idea of Everybody Draw Muhammad Day. And this was both to dilute the murder pool and to take a stand for the First Amendment. And still, on May 20th every year, people doodle the Prophet for the lulz. And well, I don't want anyone to get murdered for drawing a person of unknown appearance who's been dead for 1,300 years. I'm afraid I must reject the idea that I am required to live by the dictates of Islam.
Right.
I reject the idea I should live by the dictates of Mormonism, and I not only used to be one, I live in the state they stole from Mexico so old men could marry all their nieces and granddaughters in peace.
Right.
So, as to conclude, as the once very much under threat of death, author and all-around smarty pants Salman Rushdie said, religions, like all other ideas, deserve criticism, satire, and yes, our fearless disrespect.
Well, we're doing our part.
You know what's funny about that is South Park, a bunch of years before that famous episode, they did an episode where there was a group of superheroes that were all the prophets of the various religions.
Yeah.
Joseph Smith, Jesus, Buddha, and Muhammad was one of them. And nobody noticed. It just escaped
I wonder, was it before
scrutiny.
Was it before 2001?
No, it was. I don't think it was. I think it just didn't. No one picked up on it.
Huh.
So there's this depiction of him in one episode that no one blew anything up about. So until now, until this podcast goes to air.
Yeah, you just blew it wide open.
Yeah, so everybody get in on it. It's a good time. It's a lot of fun.
Yep.
And, you're going to die anyway. Do it for a reason.
And the way you'd start is you trace your hand on the paper, and then
cover it in hair.
cover it with hair. And
There's actually a famous movie called The Messenger, I think.
Well, yeah.
That you know about this?
Where it's all POV.
Yeah, the entire movie is Muhammad's point of view.
Is that so you never see him?
You never see him.
He doesn't ever look in a mirror?
You see his hands.
It's all these people talking to you. You
Yeah.
are he.
And it was a massively successful movie in the Islamic world. But
Can I ask about his palms? Are they
were
sufficiently
they're
fleshy?
incredibly fleshy. And the eyelashes just keep getting in front of the frame. So everybody check that out. It's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And go draw somebody.
Let's move on.